でも今日のニュースがもう駆け巡っております。そして韓国、中国から強い懸念が示されています。こういった海外の声にどう対応されるのか。
その原子力の科学者たちがやはり集まる、また権威のあるその IAEA に検証をしてもらおうと思っております。中国、韓国、いろんな反応もあることも承知をしております。
It's 13th of April 2021. Trade Minister Hiroshi Kajiyama had been on a whirlwind trip. He had just arrived in Okuma town from Tokyo. A few hours ago, the Japanese government had made the decision to dump radioactive wastewater from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into the sea.
今日は急遽お時間をいただきまして、感謝を申し上げます。大熊の皆様にも大変なご迷惑と、またご心配、さらにまた言葉では言い尽くせぬご心労をおかけしておりますことを改めて心よりお詫びを申し上げます。
The minister apologized to Jun Yoshida, the mayor of Okuma, saying the decision was a difficult but necessary one in order to move forward the recovery of the region. Okuma is where the damaged nuclear reactors that exploded during the 2011 triple disaster are located. It stood as forlorn and deserted as ever the day Japan made the decision that angered almost all of its neighbors. 11,000 people used to live here. Today, much of it still looks like a horror movie set. Okuma's path to recovery has been a long and winding one. In 2019, the government declared that parts of the town were considered safe for residents to return. Around 800 now reside around this area. Most are temporary residents who came to Okuma to help with the decommissioning of the damaged nuclear plant. About 300 are former residents who returned to Okuma recently. Despite their small number, the returnees are trying to bring back a semblance of normalcy to the disaster-stricken town. This cafe is owned by a former resident. She was only willing to share her story on the condition that her face will not be shown.
自分の前やってたお店のものも全部失いまして、泥棒にも入られ、獣にも入られ、はい、ここの地区ですね。で、もう木の実切ったままで逃げましたから、もうそれで心も病んじゃって、いとことか、はい、あと孫の友人とかちっちゃいね子供が亡くして、私のお友達ももう逃げる寸前で亡くなりましたし、はい、そういう状況の中で。でも前向きに涙も出ないで。
She lost hope for a while but learned about healthy baking. She decided to give it a try.
もう何しろ復興のために自分に何ができるかで、もう年齢も高いんですけども。
おいくつですか、ちなみに。
もう70過ぎて、これからの人生を意味のあるものにしたいなっていう自分のあれですね。したら大熊が大好きだったんですよ。
The food she serves provides much comfort to other returnees like 23-year-old Makiko Sato. Makiko was 13 when she was evacuated from Okuma after the triple disaster 10 years ago. She returned to Okuma last year after her budding theater career in Tokyo came to a dead end because of COVID-19.
Wow, 踊れる。踊れるよさ、何これ。Wow.
Makiko has lived in a government-sponsored house since returning to Okuma. Her father was a plant worker at the other TEPCO nuclear plant in Fukushima when the earthquake and tsunami struck. The nuclear accident took such a heavy toll on him, the scars were left untouched to this day.
ずっと第二原発にこもりっぱなしで、もう第二は爆発させちゃいけないっていうことで、もう本当に最前線で働いてた人間なんですけど、その父がやっと外に出られるって言って、初めてこう父と再会した時に、なんかこんなだった父がこんなぐらいに小さくなってたんですね。なんか疲れてるとかこう苦労しているとかを通り越して小さくなっていて、これは大変な本当に大変な状況なんだっていうのを子供ながらに感じて、で大人たちが会話してる中で父がボソッと津波を見たっていう一言を言った時に、私はもうこれ以上何も聞けないって思って、それ以来あんまり聞いてないです、当時の様子とか。
In the next 10 years, they became nuclear refugees, moving from shelter to shelter. She eventually went to school in Tokyo to pursue acting, but COVID-19 dashed her dream.
コロナで劇場っていう場所がもう密の空間だから、真っ先に日本のみならず世界で規制されてしまっていく様をこうニュースとかで見てて、今の自分のこの生活力で、しかも東京で演劇を続けるっていうことはまずできないな、頭がこう就職しようっていうふうに頭に切り替わって。
Makiko has settled in well in her new home. But Mayor Jun Yoshida said he cannot paint a future for Okuma yet. There's still much to do dealing with its past.
この赤いところが、じゃあここは除染をいつやるんだとか、いつから、例えば住むことができるんだとかっていうこと、全く計画の立っていないところがこの赤いところなんです。こういう大きく今3つですかね、分けられてます。こっちのグリーンのところは中間貯蔵施設ですので、こちらは人間が住むということはそもそもありえないところですのでね。
He said for areas that have been decontaminated, there have been efforts to repopulate them, although the progress has been slow.
特定復興再生拠点っていう860ヘクタールあるんですけど、そこを位置づけたところは除染をしてインフラも整備してということで、来年の春解除を目指している場所です。この黄色いところは。
This is the yellow area the mayor referred to. Ahead of the lifting of its no entry zone status next year, a new train station was recently opened in the area. Ono train station reopened in 2020, but right in front of the train station are homes surrounded by barricades. Hardly anyone uses this train station, although the commuter express train stops here. No taxis are waiting. Meanwhile, decommissioning of the Daiichi nuclear power plant continues. The government and plant operator TEPCO aim for decommissioning to be completed in 30 to 40 years, as they pressed ahead with the contentious decision to release wastewater into the sea. I visited the plant to find out the status of its decommissioning 10 years after the disaster. The residents of Okuma didn't envision this when they invited TEPCO to build a nuclear plant here 6 decades ago. Back then, nuclear power was seen as a ticket to prosperity for rural towns in Fukushima.
I'm currently heading to Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. Now, it's the first time since 2018 that I'm revisiting the area.
We're driving on a road that's already been decontaminated. Radiation levels here are considered safe, although a prolonged stay will still result in higher than normal exposure. TEPCO officials told me I will be evacuated at the point the amount of radiation that I'm exposed to hits 80 microsievert, a level that's slightly lower than what you will get from a chest X-ray. This machine will keep track of the amount of radionuclides in my body before and after the tour.
Now I've changed buses and I'm right inside the site of Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. I'll be headed to near the units 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Radiation levels rise as we come close to the crippled unit, but it's regarded as safe to walk around in light gear. Okuma hosts the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant along with neighboring Futaba town. For decades, the plant was a much touted achievement in Fukushima's rebirth as the new energy hub for the nation, following the demise of the region's once mighty coal mining. Then the 2011 earthquake and tsunami struck, triggering a nuclear meltdown. In the last 10 years, hundreds of fuel rods from the storage pools of Units 3 and 4 have been taken out, thus removing the risk of them melting down again and releasing massive radiation in the event of another major disaster. But the removal at Units 1 and 2 has been postponed by up to 10 years from the initial target of 2018. TEPCO risk communicator Michiyo Ishida told me the arrival of a new robot from the UK, crucial to the cleanup process, had been delayed due to COVID-19.
中については非常に線量が高いということで、これまで遠隔操作によるロボットを用いた操作をしてきております。
Before all the units can be made safe again, TEPCO has to keep cycling in water to keep fuel and debris cool. A process called the Advanced Liquid Processing System, or ALPS, is used to treat the contaminated water cycled out. ALPS removes most of the radioactive elements from the tainted water except for tritium, a radioactive isotope of hydrogen. Over the years, TEPCO has collected some 1,000 tanks of treated water. It's reaching breaking point soon.
Behind me are tanks filled with treated water. It's 1,000 to 1,350 tons each. Now these tanks are expected to fill the space here by the latter half of 2022. And the Japanese government wants to release treated water, and it's by diluting tritium by 1/40 of the standard it's set.
The government has said it will take another 30 to 40 years before the units can be fully decommissioned. Until that happens, the plant will continue to generate wastewater that will then be dumped into the ocean. But skeptics said decommissioning will likely take much longer. Tetsuro Tsutsui is a retired energy plant worker turned anti-nuclear activist.
30年40年というのは事故を起こさない原発の廃炉期間と同じなんですね。そんな同じ期間で片付くわけがないんだけれども、でそれは本質的に全く間違いで、もう100年以上、私は200年ぐらいは見なきゃいけないと思ってますけれども。
And until the damaged plant is fully cleaned up and retired, the danger of another accident remains real. On February 13, a magnitude 7.3 earthquake rocked Fukushima. Fortunately, a tsunami was not triggered, thus averting that feared scenario.
建物の、対流水、いわゆる汚染水ですね。それが環境に持ち出されると、津波の場合ですと引き波がありますので、それによって持ち出されるという、それが大きな懸念事項になります。
A fear that Japan and its people will have to live in for a very, very long time.
Some people call them the mermaids of Jeju. With just their goggles and flippers, they dive as deep as 20 meters underwater on one breath to bring back treasures from the sea.
Now these women in the black rubber suits, they're the Haenyeo, the women divers here in Jeju Island. And these days, about more than 90% of them are over the age of 60.
It's been the way of life here for centuries. Women harvesting seafood off the coast of Korea to bring food on the table for their families. Ko Suni has been diving since she was 17.
9시에 물에 들어가지고 지금 난 거. 그냥 한 3시간, 4시간. 몇 시, 지금 몇 시?
지금 1시 됐어요.
1시 되시면은
한 4시간 하셨네요.
4시간 했네.
This grandma has been diving since she was 18.
이거 하나하나 다 손질해야 돼. 하나 깨서 한 값씩 다 그냥 이거 하나 깨서 하나하나 다 손질해야 돼. 얼마나 힘든 건지 알아요, 이거.
Both are 66 years old, but they are considered young among women divers here.
저 할머니 80줄.
It's hard to tell from the laughter, but it's been a tough year for Jeju's women divers. Their income had plunged as overseas markets for the catch have been shut because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
일본 수출 우리는 일본으로 수출하는데 코로나 때문에 수출이 안 돼. 갔다 오면 직원들 격리시키고 갔다 오면 또 막 성가시고 하니까 수출이 안 돼. 그래서 안 해. 소라 이제 금 산란기도 되고 하니까 금지했다가 이제 10월 1일부터 또 다시 할까.
Just as the women divers hoped they could sail to Japan again, they're now troubled by the country's decision to release nuclear wastewater into the sea.
걱정되지. 우리한테 피해가 있는데 소라 같은 거 하면은 못 팔아먹어. 일본에 수출이 안 되니까 걱정이지. 이제 그때 봐야 되지만은 지금 현재로는 못해.
With their bare hands, the Haenyeo have supported not just their families, but the local economy too.
Now these women divers have been diving for about 3-4 hours, but the work is far from over.
Here the Haenyeo must clean and prepare the catch before they can be sent to the market. It is now the season for sea urchins.
5개. 딱 이런 거 5개. 이렇게 해서 돈 버는 거야. 이렇게 해서 많이 하는 사람은 하루 30만 원씩 벌어. 아무리 못하면 15만 원.
Creamy and rich with seawater mixed in it is a taste of Jeju that attracted tens of millions of tourists every year to the island before the pandemic. But locals worry that it could all change with Japan's plan to release wastewater from Fukushima into the sea.
Now this is Jeju Tongmun Fish Market, and this is the largest fish market here in Jeju Island. It's a must-see attraction for tourists here, but also it's a place where many of the local residents come to get their fresh seafood and fish.
Ever since Japan confirmed it would release water containing radioactive substance into the sea, shop owners here have been nervous about their business. This lady, who's been running this shop for 20 years, says she remembers how badly they were hit following the Fukushima disaster in 2011.
오래전에 그 후쿠시마 원전 했을 때도 수입하던 걸 일절 중단하고 수입을 안 해요. 그리고 일본 거라 그러면 다 안 먹으려고 그러죠. 그 오염이 우리나라 해안으로 들어오고 또 특히 제주도로 가까워서 들어온다고 하면 우리는 정말 먹을 것이 없어서 큰일이에요.
Still, losing business is not her biggest fear.
장사도 둘째 문제고 먹을 건 뭘 먹고 살아요. 바다에 나는 거를 먹을 수가 없잖아요. 그러면 안심하고 먹지를 못하니까 이거를 국가적인 선에서 외교적인 문제를 어떻게 잘 해결해야지. 그냥 우리가 뭐 이렇게 말한다고 되는 게 아니잖아요.
Since 2013, South Korea has banned seafood from Fukushima and its nearby areas.
Now, seafood from that area has been banned for some time now, and so most products here and also across the country have to indicate where that product is from. And this is a sea cucumber that's from Jeju.
Many Koreans will check the labels before they buy. It's such a taboo subject. Some shop owners here say they wish the media would stop talking about the Fukushima issue.
2년 후라도 방류했어요. 한 3년 앞으로 뭐 짧게는 3년, 길게는 한 4년 후에 이게 돌아오는 건데 그렇게 막 레스폰스가 떠들어 버리니까 우리 업종 관계 이런 사람들이 조금 문의가 많이 와요.
He says worried customers have already started calling, asking if Jeju seafood was safe to eat. South Korea and Japan share the sea. The ultimate fear for local residents here is that Jeju's reputation as the place that produces South Korea's freshest seafood could be tainted by the wastewater from Fukushima. An entire island's livelihood could be under threat, including that of the Haenyeo. At their peak around the 1960s, there were more than 20,000 Haenyeo in Jeju. But the numbers have dwindled in recent decades, and these days, according to the local government, there are about 4,000 of them left on the island. More than ever, the Haenyeo need help to navigate the rough waters ahead. On this day at Chongdal village, where about 1,200 people live, a shamanic rite is taking place. 5 shamans were invited to perform the rituals. They dance and sing and talk to the gods in front of a table set with food as offerings. They're praying that the gods will keep the women divers safe and give them abundant catches. This time of the year is one of the busiest for Song Young-mi as she travels around the island performing these rituals.
Now, she's been doing this since she was 13, and so she's been doing it for over 40 years now.
As the head shaman of the day, she says she and the other shamans serve as a medium, connecting villages with the unseen realm.
해녀들이 제일 목숨이 중요하잖아요. 해녀뿐만 아니라 또 선조, 배 타는 사람, 바다에서 종사하다가 돌아가신 분. 우리 눈으로는 안 보이지만은 다 영혼들은 다 오는 거거든.
Her audience takes the ritual seriously, looking out for any messages or warnings from the gods through these shamans. At one point, one shaman started crying as she said she had empathy for all these women who risked their lives to feed their family, like so many other women divers who had died at sea. Once in a while, in between prayers, the women would offer vows to the gods, sometimes putting down cash as offering.
Now, this is coming to an end, and so everyone's packing up, and they'll all be going out soon.
The final ritual is sending off a straw boat filled with a lot of food and villagers' hopes that as the boat sails away, it will take with it all the evil spirits and make the sea safe for the mermaids of Jeju.